Hi, I'm Greg Howlett. Welcome to this short video on reharmonization of the song, the old American classic, Shall We Gather at the River, an old hymn, at least by American standards. And we're going to be talking about some things we can do harmonically here, touching on a blog post that I wrote last week that gave a lot of numbers and probably did a little more than confuse people, to be honest. Sort of hard with just writing to demonstrate some of these things. Now, Shall We Gather at the River is a classic folk song by American standards, and it is a simple harmonic song. As a matter of fact, there are 16 bars in the song, only 3 chords, 1, 4, and 5. We're going to talk today just about the first 4 bars. The first 4 bars are in chords 1, 1, 5, 5. 1, 1, 5, 5. Those are the first 4 bars. And we're going to talk about how to improve those first 4 bars. What do you do instead? Now, as I like to say, we're not going to talk about chord substitutions here. Chord substitutions is a flawed approach, a flawed way of looking at this. We're really talking about substituting out the harmony completely. Now, we'll leave the 5 chord at the end. That's what we call a destination chord. It needs to stay there. At least in my opinion, it needs to stay there. Somebody else may have a whole different opinion about it, but I'm going to leave that 5 chord there at the end. But the other chords we can change. And we're not going to just change one at a time. We're going to just trade out the 1, 1, 5, 5 harmony for a whole new set of harmony that ends on a 5 chord. Now, in the blog post, I gave you 10 examples of things you can do. Ranging from very, very simple stuff to a little more complicated stuff. And I want to demonstrate how the song would sound using those 10 concepts. 10 new ideas just for these first 4 bars of Shall We Gather at the River. To start with, these first four examples all deal with harmony based on the circle of fifths and moving in diatonic steps, meaning if you look at the key of the song, you're moving from 1 to 2 to 3, like from the first 1 chord to the 2 chord to the 3 chord. Those are diatonic steps. Chords like to move that way, so we move diatonically, and then we'll move around the circle from 6 to 2 to 2 to 5, 5 to 1. That kind of movement is movement around the circle of fifths, probably the most natural way that chords like to move. Let's play the first one. I'll call out the chords as I play it. Again, this is a pretty simple one. 1, 3, 6, 2, 1, 3, 2, 5. 1, 3, 2, 5. Okay, now I guess I probably should just play the original harmony just so you get a feel for the song, how it sounds. Normally it would sound like this. 1, 5, 5, okay? So what I just did was I changed it to 1, 3, 2, 5. Okay? So that's one option. It is an improvement. It's not that fancy, but it works. Next one, we start on a 3 chord. We're worried about stopping on a 5 chord, but I don't mind starting on a different chord. So we're going to start on 3 and move to 6 to 2 to 5. This is a classic progression around the circle of fifths. 2, let me play it again. 3, 6, 2, 5. Okay, 3, 6, 2, 5. It works. It's nice sometimes to surprise people. They expect you to start that phrase with a 1 chord. You start with a 3 chord instead. Works just fine. Next one, we move from 1 to 4, 3, 6, 2, 5. Now we're starting to use multiple chords in a phrase. So we're going to go from 1 to 4 in the first bar. 2 beats on a 1 chord, 2 beats on a 4 chord. It sounds like this. Let me start again. 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, 5. Starting to sound good. Next one is very, very similar. 1, 2, 3, Okay? By the way, sometimes when I play 5, I'm really playing a 5 sus. Some of you may have picked up on that. It's not a 5 chord, it's a 5 sus chord. You remember that, I'm sure, from your theory classes at some point of your life. Those chords are basically interchangeable, except the sus5 likes to resolve to the 5. So if you, normally I'll play a 5 sus for a bar or maybe a beat or two and then move it to the 5 chord. All right, so those are simple examples using diatonic step, circle of fifths. Let's talk about some more interesting examples. As Emerald, that chef, says, we'll kick it up a notch. Get a little spicy here with some more interesting harmony. These next 4 all work on a assumption that we're going to start the phrase not on the 1 chord but on another chord, which I happen to love. It's the sharp 4 half diminished chord. And the sharp 4 half diminished chord can substitute for a lot of different chords, and it sort of gives people a little bit of a surprise. I'll show you really quick. Let's say we play the first phrase pretty simply, okay? Okay, everybody expects me to go to a 1 chord here, okay, like that, but we're going to do something different. Here we go. Okay, did you hear that? Sort of a nice thing to do. These progressions I'm about to do all do that. They start with that new chord, sharp 4 half diminished, these next 4, and they like to move. I like to move from there to the minor 4 6 chord. Here's how it sounds. Here's the first one. Sharp 4 half diminished, minor 4 6, 3, 6, 2, 5. Okay, again. Okay, here's another one. Sharp 4 half diminished, 4, minor 6, 3. Okay, I need to stop and talk about this one for a second. This one uses a chord that I really, really like. It's the flat 3 diminished chord. And I like to use it here, but I have to change something. I have to change the melody to make it work. Listen, here's what I'm doing. Normally the song would start like this. Shall we gather at the river? So you hold here for a half note. To make this work, I have to change it to a quarter note. River. The reason why is because this note doesn't work against the flat 3 diminished. So I push that note forward, so when I get down and play the flat 3 diminished, I'm not playing it against the melody note at all. Okay? Here's the chord. Okay? I love that chord, but you do have to sort of manipulate things, manipulate the melody a little bit to make it work. Okay? One of my favorites. That I use that progression a ton. I love that progression. Let's see. Moving on, we're getting a little more complicated now. We have in this next one, we have a tritone substitution. That flat 6/7 that you see there in the second to the last bar. That is a tritone sub. It's subbing for a 2/7. And this is how that sounds. This is getting a little bit on the dissonant side. But I like this kind of sound. You can sort of use this according to taste. You spice these things up too much and you sort of lose the character of the song, but a little of this is really nice. Here it is. So it's that. Okay, there it is right there. That's flat 6 dominant, 5. Okay, let's do it one more time. Okay, the next one uses another secondary, actually two tritone subs. That flat 7 dominant in the second bar, and then the flat 6 dominant in the third bar. Here's how that sounds. You like that sound? I don't know. I like it. Same one we just did before. Okay, so it's starting to get a little bit complicated, and you can decide how much of that, if any, you want to use. Tritone subs. I use a lot of them. Some of my music really is based on tritone subs. For example, that Portraits of Hope, Savior Like a Shepherd Lead Us, is full, chock full of that kind of harmony, tritone subs. But in some cases, you do have to worry sort of about the character of the song. And you can probably go a little too far with folk music with that kind of harmony. All right, we got a couple more to go through here. We have a 1 sharp 1 diminished, 2 sharp 2 diminished. 4 chords in the first bar. Here's how it sounds. And that's not how it sounds. Okay, that sound. Okay, so here's your 1 sharp 1 diminished, sharp 2 diminished, 3, 6. Okay. By the way, how can you make that more interesting? What can you change? Well, in that second bar, you could change that 6 back to the flat 3 diminished, right? And then to go from there back to the original. In other words, you can sort of mix and match these progressions, all of these together, as long as they make sense harmonically, according to the rules of functional harmony. All right, and one more. This one has a couple of tritone subs in it as well in that second bar. You see, we cram 8 chords into 1 bar. Okay. Again, a little bit on the dissonant side, you decide how much you want to use of that. My favorite, probably this progression. Something like that. I would use that a lot. I'm arranging this song now. It's coming up on a new project that I'm working on next year that focuses on Americana, American contributions to church music. And this is one of the songs in the project. So I'm working on it, and that's the progression that I tend to lean toward here. But I would use multiple progressions in this song. I'll play it for you, as a matter of fact. Each phrase, you could use one of these concepts in. For example, here's the first phrase, and I use that 1 sharp diminished 2 concept. Now the second phrase, I'm gone back to the sharp 4 half diminished to start the phrase. Okay, so you could do that there as well. In that second phrase, use the sharp 4 half diminished. Going into the third phrase, we're starting on a 4 chord. And so everything sort of breaks down to some extent there, and I haven't really talked enough about it to go into too much detail, but you actually could use a lot of these same progressions even in that line, in the fourth line as well. Or at least those progressions slightly modified. Anyway, that's sort of the way that I look at this and the way I think about these kind of concepts, harmony. Hopefully that was of help to you. Make sure you go out to the site, greghowlett.com, and print off this blog post. I think it was posted during the week of May 2011. Let's see, May 12th, 11th, something like that, 2011. And you can get a copy of those progressions that we just went through, and hopefully this will make a little more sense to you. See you next time.